Hello everyone, and welcome to another edition of BrainScratch Searchlight. I'm John Lorden, and there's only been a few days where it's been kind of hard to kick on the camera and share some time with all of you. And this is certainly one of those days. There's just a bunch of updates that I want to give you. This Searchlight is going to be a bit different. We're going to do updates on 3 different cases. But before we get into that, I did just want to touch on what happened at the Pulse nightclub in Orlando. Let me just put it out there that my heart goes out to all the friends and families of the victims of that tragic event. And I know some people are probably wondering what I think of the YouTube trend around this, which unfortunately is divided between videos where politicians are trying to take this case and make a stand against gun reform of some kind, which I think is a natural reaction. I think it's natural that when we have something like this happen, that people look for a way to fix it. So I understand those things. However, I sometimes feel that they rush to those conversations, that there's almost this sense of, look, I told you so. That is extremely unfortunate, and I wish that there would be a little period of time where we could kind of absorb the events and grieve a little bit before people start getting up on their soapboxes and pushing an agenda out of this event. The other types of videos out there are creators, just like myself, trying to deal with this and share their feelings with all of you, which once again, I think is natural. I did have a bit of a reaction to that from certain creators. I just... If they don't deal in this kind of topic, I mean, it's weird. Everyone has a right to feel something about this. Everyone has the right to talk about it. But I can tell you there was a couple videos I started, and I didn't want to hear that person's feelings about it. I had enough of my own, and what they were saying basically wasn't really helping me deal with it in any way. So some of those videos are certainly better than others. And like I said, everyone has a right to talk about it. Then there's another section of videos which are the conspiracy theory videos, and it's strange for me because before BrainScratch and before I really started looking into these things, I was a huge fan of channels like that, and looking into these cases and wondering, is this potentially some type of hoax? Is this a false flag event, something like that? Now that I've looked into these things, now that I've talked to family members, particularly of missing people, but just family members that are grieving over an unexpected loss in their life, I really think that certain subjects need to be handled with extreme care. And putting out a video where you're claiming it's a hoax and the only evidence you have is that you have footage of someone being interviewed by the news and you're convinced that they're an actor because their tears don't look real or their emotions don't seem to suit you, I don't get that anymore. Like I said, I used to be a fan of stuff like that. Just, I wonder if this person might be right. Looking at it now through the lens of having a year and a half of doing research in all kinds of different cases around this stuff, you never know how people are going to grieve. You never know how they're going to react when there's a camera in front of their face. All of us react different. I was just watching one of my old videos from only a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, and even my persona on camera is extremely different than it used to be. So using that to make your judgment about the entire event being staged or faked is an extremely thin and weak conversation, and it's a conversation that, quite honestly, I don't want to take part in. Now, if someone had evidence, there was a store across the street that has cameras that shoot across the parking lot, and we were able to see that nothing actually happened that night, I might look at that type of thing a little bit differently. But in large part, a lot of the videos I'm seeing are just people's opinions of victims and family members being interviewed on the news and then determining simply from their expression if they're telling the truth or not. And I just do not think that that's appropriate or fair. And it's definitely nothing that, if you're looking for the truth of these cases, you can't rely on that. It's just, it doesn't work that way. If you want to delude yourself into thinking something or having a belief structure that is made up of extremely weak information, then you can go ahead. You absolutely have the right to believe in that stuff. But I've definitely come around a bit of a corner on that for myself personally, so I just wanted to share that with you. But once again, it's tragic. I think it's also tragic from the perspective of the story that's shaking out now, that perhaps this shooter might have been struggling with his own sexual identity in some way. There's just no good way to look at this case and try to make something good out of it. It's tragic on many, many fronts. But all that being said, let's do what we do here on BrainScratch Searchlight, and that is talk about missing people. Now, this is a little bit of a down episode for me because we have some updates that are they're not the ray of hope and light that you would hope for in these cases. However, it does always raise the question with me when we get information like this: is the family better off now knowing what happened to that person? So to start with, we're going to take a look at Rye Hunt. And here is a picture of Rye. And I just want to say thank you to all of you, the amazing BrainScratch community, because I had updates about this case coming very quickly and very regularly about what was being discovered. I'm not sure if all of you heard it, so I do want to film this update just so we can get it all out there. But Rye is the person that went missing in Rio de Janeiro. Seemed like he swam to an uninhabited island where he bumped into a fishing boat, and someone said they spotted him out there, gave him some water. He had said he was from Australia, but then the fishermen left him for some reason. There was a sighting about 25 kilometers away from Rio de Janeiro where people are saying they thought they saw a body in the water. The clothing seemed to match. Well, we now indeed know that Rye did die in the water. A body was found several days ago, and there was one little hitch in it, in that the media decided to send pictures of the body directly to the family, so to try to get them to identify if this was Rye or not. The family was very upset by this. They spoke about that publicly. They would not confirm or deny if it was Rye. And supposedly there was supposed to be some testing that was going to take up to 10 days, but it looks like they sped that up, and within a few days we had the answer that it was indeed Rye. So here we're jumping over to Australian au.news.yahoo.com, and we can see Rye Hunt died from dehydration or drowning. According to our investigation, the location of the body supports the investigation that Rye went to the island of Cotonduba during a psychotic episode, coherent with the state of someone who is running away from a danger created in their minds. This is according to Rio Police Alan Satu. Certainly because of his physical debilitation, probably because of dehydration, he must have tried to leave the island and not have had enough strength or health to get to land. This article also details some information from his family. Apparently they are looking to have him cremated in Rio de Janeiro and then fly him back to Tasmania so his ashes could be scattered. Apparently those were his wishes. And I believe that on the day you're watching this is when they are actually transporting his ashes back home. His uncle had some very heart-wrenching words, and as well as his girlfriend. But if anything else, I am happy that they are at least in a point where they are allowed to grieve. They're not stuck in the middle of this story, not knowing where he is, not knowing what happened to him. It's a pretty reasonable assumption that the stories of him being terrified from some type of drug use are true. And I hope that, if anything, maybe us covering this story and sharing it with all of you might help some more people be safe out there. I'm not going to come on here and say, hey, no one should do drugs, no one should ever do drugs. But I do believe that there are certain ways that are significantly safer to try to experiment with drugs, and doing it in a strange country with people that you may or may not be familiar with, in strange environments. The psychosis factor, if you are going to start freaking out about things, if you're in unfamiliar environment, I imagine that just that gets multiplied exponentially. So I would first hope that all of you try to avoid doing these types of things at all, risky behavior like this. But if you are going to, please be smart about it. Please be safe about it. It's a very tough lesson to learn, but I think that's one of the best things we can take from this. And I just hope that his family can heal and grieve. And I know that many of you out there are with me in terms of sharing our warmest regards and prayers with them, and hope that they can come through this. So let's move on to the second case we're covering today. That is of Brittanee Marie Drexel. If you remember, this is the one that went missing in on April 25th of 2009 from Myrtle Beach. Very young girl. She was 17 when she decided to sneak away on vacation. She told her family she was staying somewhere else. She actually went to the beach. There's been some big media coverage on this. I'm going to have links for the BrainScratch episodes about these people in the description box below, so you can definitely go back and see the previous coverage that we've done. For Brittanee, that story even popped up on Dr. Phil. People were very critical of her friends, the quote friends, that she was with out there, but it appears that that might not be well placed, because I don't think it had anything to do with any of them. Last week, some information came out that the FBI believes Brittanee Drexel was held captive and killed. If you did see the BrainScratch episode we did on it, I spoke about the cell phone pings and that they seemed to go about 50 miles south of the beach that she was staying at. And it appears that that information seems to be solid. What we've come to discover through the course of this investigation now is that Brittanee Drexel did leave the Myrtle Beach area, said David Thomas, special agent in charge of the FBI in South Carolina. We believe she traveled to this area, and we believe she was killed after that. Thomas made the announcement at a Wednesday news conference in McClellanville, a small fishing town about 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach. Her cell phone gave off its last signal the day after she went missing. Investigators narrowed the phone location to an area near the South Santee River between McClellanville and Georgetown. It's the same area where Thomas now says Drexel was held captive, quote, several days before she was killed. People came in contact with her, saw her, knew that she was here, so we know that there is information in the community here, he said. That's about all the detail that's been released on this. There is more information, basically just the feelings of her family and them starting to enter their grieving process around the reality that Brittanee is not coming home alive. They are trying to locate her body so that they could have proper services and a burial for her. I am a bit perplexed. I don't know how the FBI would have this kind of information but not be able to chase leads down around it. I mean, they're saying that she was seen by several people, so I would hope that they're shaking those people up and trying to get to better information that might come through with a suspect or possibly even a conviction. But from what I can see, based on the family's comments, they feel fairly certain that she is no longer alive. As a matter of fact, I've got another article here. Brittanee Drexel's father, I felt helpless knowing what had happened. After 7 long years of waiting and praying for the return of my daughter, we know she isn't coming home alive, said Don Drexel. Brittanee's parents were told their daughter was taken against her will to an area 50 to 60 miles south of Myrtle Beach. Authorities now maintain that there are people in the Georgetown, South Carolina area who saw Drexel during the, quote, several days she spent there, and no details that could put law enforcement over the edge to solve the case. We're begging the community, someone with a heart down there, to come out and say, I seen her, I spoke to her, Chad said. So, once again, I'm just kind of confused. What kind of information could they have that would lead them to believe solidly that she is in fact deceased? They are clear that they don't have a body, but they're also clear that several people saw her, and I can't imagine what kind of situation she was in where someone would see her and she wouldn't be trying to get help or trying to flee or something along those lines. There's just so many big holes in this story, but the FBI is being very plain here and saying that they believe that she's no longer alive. So, bit of unfortunate news in the case of Brittanee Drexel. Let's move on to the third case we're covering today. which is that of Lexi and Stacy. Her father, Josh Stacy, actually reached out to me in a message and asked that if there was any way that I could do some more coverage on Lexi. I am asking all of you because my audience grows very regularly, and I don't remember how long ago it's been since I've done that story, but I'm pretty sure that my audience count has almost doubled since then. So there's a very good chance that you did not see that episode. So if you get nothing else from this section of this video, please do me a favor, go to the links below, find the one about Lexi and Stacy, watch that video and share it and see if you can help bring this girl home. In terms of people that are likely to come home, I believe that there is a strong possibility that Lexi will eventually come home someday or be found by someone. Just to give you some light details on this case, she's pretty much run away with a boyfriend, a person that FBI suspects has robbed a bank. The police actually had him in custody but released him on bail, and then he disappeared. The two of them have been missing for a year now. We are actually over 1 year since she has gone missing. She is now 22 years old. I know that kind of throws a wrench in things, because once people become of the age of being an adult, sometimes the authorities will say, well, people have the right to disappear, but I believe that there is a warrant for Lexi as well as her boyfriend. And outside of all that, the family, both Josh and his wife, did an interview recently on a new show that I wanted to highlight called The Missing Voice. And they're only 3 episodes in. It's a new blog hosted by these ladies, Jody and Megan. And I listened to their first episode, which was kind of inspiring in a way, because if you've watched Johnny Vlogs this week, you know that I'm working on putting a podcast together. So just on a personal note, it was kind of neat to listen to a very first episode of someone else's podcast and see kind of, you know, the issues they ran into, how smooth did things go. But outside of that, they are people that are looking to help other people in these cases of missing persons. So I just wanted to highlight them. And their debut episode, if you jump 50 minutes into it, that is the start of the section with Lexi's family, talking about that. And you get some insight there that you really won't get in other places. I know that they wrote about Lexi's case at Sword and Scale. Of course, the coverage that we did on BrainScratch, Josh was even nice enough to mention that in the blog or in the podcast. But outside of that, you get some personal insight kind of from the parents about some of the fears they had when this guy started popping around, the potential drug use that might have been going on, which I don't think I had bumped into during my original research. I think I theorized that there might be some type of drug use. The parents somewhat confirmed that. It's kind of every parent's nightmare the way this whole story shakes out. You know, you've got your beautiful little girl, and all of a sudden there's a new boy around and she starts pulling away from the family. But this is like a nightmare version of that story, because all of a sudden you find out that guy is robbing banks and he has taken off with your daughter and she is now missing. And fast forward a year and you still haven't heard anything from her. It just truly, it tugs at my heart. So that's why I wanted to share it with you guys again and ask you one more time. If you haven't seen the episode on Lexi, please check it out in the description box below. Please check out the podcast so you can hear from her parents what they went through. If nothing else, even if you can't help find these people, there are lessons in this for all of us. There are lessons about how we can react in these situations or potential steps that we can take. So I do think that there is a huge value in terms of reviewing this information, even for people that are outside the country or other such conditions like that. So, wow. So that is it for this BrainScratch Searchlight update. I know it's a bit heavier than usual, but I really appreciate you guys being there, first of all, and sticking it out with me, spending some time with me to cover all this. I'm going to go to the original videos and I'm going to add kind of text boxes there so that people can see that there's updates on these cases, and it'll bring them directly to those updates in this video. So I've got a little more footwork to do as soon as I get this posted, but I appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for giving me this platform. Thank you for all of you new subscribers that have come on recently. It's just the bigger this thing gets, the more viable it becomes, the more I hear from people that need help. It's just everything, it's like a snowball, and eventually I want that snowball to start solving some of these cases. That is my biggest dream ultimately for this show. And I don't think we're too far off of that. I really think it's just a matter of time and keeping this growth steady and keeping all of you engaged. So I hope I'm doing a good job at that. I hope you have a great week. Please stay safe, hug your family, tell them you love them, and I will catch you next time on the Geek and Dorks channel. Take care.